Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm going to call to order the Newburgh School District 29J Board of Directors meeting for December 10th, 2024, and ask Director DeHart to please lead us in the flag salute. Thank you. We are going to go into executive session, by which we'll follow with our regular session immediately following the executive session. And I will read our great little statement. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. We will hold our executive session in the superintendent's office for the duration. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on or otherwise disclose any of the deliberations or anything said about these subjects during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decisions may be made in executive session. At the end of the executive session, we will return to open session. We are going to go into executive session under ORS 192.6602H to consult with legal counsel regarding the legal rights and duties of the public body with regard to current litigation or likely to be filed. So at this time, we'll convene into executive session. Okay, I'm going to call the board meeting back to order, recessing from executive session. And so now we'll go into review agenda additions and or deletions. Director Hayden.
Yeah, I'd like to add a topic item just for an update under, I guess, discussion items section, where we're at with the cell phone policy. I guess I make a motion to add
Okay.
it. There you
Okay.
go.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or further discussion? I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, so we'll go into the consent agenda with new hires and resignations, the board minutes, and donations, very generous donations from our community as usual. I always like to highlight those. We have a $5,000 donation from the Newburgh Charitable Organization, which is, for those of you know, the Newburgh Thrift Store, for the life skills class, for an updated patio area. $1,000 donation from Mark and Elizabeth Moisen, which is, they own a bed and breakfast outside of Dundee, to Jane Eilert's culinary program at Newburgh High School. And then I'm going to add one there. My brother sent $375 of Amazon wish list for Crater Elementary School Library. And he lives in Virginia. So I was very appreciative of that. I'm sorry that the circumstances that we find ourselves in mean that people from outside the community might need to help, but he was very gracious and they're very appreciative of it. So can we get a motion for the consent agenda?
I'll move that the Newburgh School District Board of Directors approve the consent agenda as presented, or as modified, I guess, added to it.
Second.
Any further questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. So let's move to public forum. Did we have any public comment? Seeing nobody leap up from the audience, we could move on to student representatives' comments. Do you have anything that you'd like to share with the group?
I mean, a little update. Second trimester has started. It's the second day, so my classes are pretty much the same. Today was interesting because I'm also enrolled in Calculus 2 at George Fox for only the next few days because today was our final. So I spent a few hours working on that. So we'll see what the grades are in the next few days. But that's, I mean, not quite within the realm of this school district, but still somewhat related. The theater program, we're working on Macbeth, still working on that. So we'll be ready to go on the, I think, 23rd, 24th, 25th of January. So yeah, it's going great. So that's what's up.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to reports, presentations, and discussion items. We have the new class proposals. Tammy, do you want to come on up? Take a seat there. That'd be great.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I did not prepare an actual presentation. Am I on? Okay.
It's showing them. Okay.
Okay, great. So in your packet, we have two new course proposals for this year, in addition to some ODE required graduation requirements that are coming on board. So the first new course proposal, both courses fall within our CTE or Career and Technical Education realm. First one is Intro to Accounting, and it would be in addition to our career pathway in our business program. So adding in a financial component to our business pathway. We have a lot of marketing classes, and this would be kind of an offshoot and begin some financial classes as well. I don't think it's any surprise to anybody that the idea of a financial career, we are in great need of people who can do some accounting and business functions. We know that. It would not be additional FTE for us. It would be in replace of some sections of business that we already have. So we do have several classes of intro to business because we don't have a lot of classes in our pathway right now. And so we would see that as kids move through the pathway, we would not have as many kids taking the intro courses, but taking the advanced courses. I'm happy to answer questions about that course, or would you like me to move on to the second course? Okay, the second course is the medical assisting program. So the impetus for moving to adding a medical assistant class in our health services program is because for the last probably 4 or 5 years, we have not been able to launch our BNA program. To successfully launch our BNA program, we have to have a licensed nurse teach part of that course. And as you probably also know, it is very difficult to find nurses for healthcare professions, let alone to come away from a healthcare profession and teach a course for a high school. So we are going in a little bit different direction. We want to still have a capstone course for our health services career pathway. And this would be our capstone course. It would allow students to graduate and sit for a medical assistant exam so that they could go right into that career field if they so choose. The money that you will see, the $119 testing fee, and some of the curricular needs that we have in terms of cost, we would be able to just transition the money that we have set aside in our high school success grant for the BNA program to this program so that it would be, again, a neutral cost situation. Any
How many
questions?
kids do you think would participate in this? I'm just thinking from your comment about the financial impact and looking for grants to fill the needs. Just wondering how many we would be looking at.
So I would say as a new course, we're probably looking at somewhere between 20 and 30 students. We have several students that go through all of the courses that we currently offer in our medical pathway. So we have anatomy and physiology, kinesiology, medical terminology, this is kind of like our medical sciences 3. We have like medical sciences 1 and 2. This would be like our capstone level. So
That's great. Sounds great.
So kind of backing what Chair Bridges is saying or asking. So like we already have some of these classes. Like how many classes do we offer? What's the average enrollment in the medical classes we already have? You know?
yeah, it depends. I would have to look up the numbers. Some are more popular than others. Anatomy and physiology, for example, we usually have at least 2 sections, so somewhere between 50 and 60 students. The more advanced courses like kinesiology, those numbers are a little bit lower. So by the time they get to the capstone class, we're probably talking about 25 or 30.
And then one other question, I was just looking through this. And so the upfront fees or the fees you see it on the front page is 25 and 119. But then on section 5B, financial impact costs $180 per student.
Correct. That's
So-
the curricular part that I was referring to. We currently have money allocated for the BNA program in one of our grants, High School Success.
Okay.
And we would just we would rewrite the grant to shift that particular amount of money into the medical assisting course instead, so that
Okay.
it would still cover those for kids.
Thank you.
For this medical sciences 3, it's a 2-trimester course. So is that something that we would not be able to take full advantage of until the next school year?
Correct. Yeah. Both of these courses are in anticipation of
For
the
next year.
25-26 school
Thank you.
year. Yeah. I can go on to the Oregon diploma changes as well. So as you may recall, last year about this time, I went over the Newburgh High School diploma requirements and provided a sheet for you that shows what our requirements are for classes of 2025 and 2026. And then we have the shift beginning with the class of 2027, where we have to offer a half of a credit in personal finance and a half of a credit in higher education and career path skills. So this is not a new course proposal per se, but an actual graduation requirement coming from ODE. So the personal finance, I included the personal finance standards, I believe. I included both of them. I'm not sure if Tabitha missed one of the sheets, but the personal finance education, we plan to actually have as a standalone 0.5 credit course that we'll teach next year. The higher education and career path skills, we are approaching this a little bit differently. Several years ago, Oregon Department of Education required a 0.5 career credit. And what most high schools did is they took the opportunity through career guidance activities to meet that 0.5 career credit requirement. We're looking at doing the same thing. So we have developed an outline of the standards and the activities that we teach through our career guidance activities. And we've aligned the standards with our activities so that students over the course of 4 years at the high school will earn that 0.5 credit. In addition, we've developed some alternate activities that we'll be able to provide students in the event of students moving into our district and maybe not having some of those activities met yet. So we believe that we can do this without offering additional classes. We can do it through our career guidance program that our counselors provide and still meet those requirements.
Just make a whimsical comment. It's funny how we repeat ourselves 30 years later. I'm graduating class of 95, and I remember both of these things having to be done. So
Yeah, it is. Education is a cyclical, but I think most of our parents are cheering that we're going to be offering personal finance, that every student will get to take that. So what we're doing next year, we're going to offer that at the junior level. It's going to be a requirement on their forecasting sheet because the junior year seems to be lighter than most in terms of requirements. And so it just made sense to embed that in the junior year. So our class of 2027 will be juniors next year and we'll be off and running.
So you said the personal finance is going to be not a standalone, but embedded in other?
No, it will be a standalone class. It's the higher education and career skills that will be embedded within our career guidance.
And so if
activities.
it's 0.5 credits, is that 1 trimester or 2 trimesters?
That's 1 trimester. Yep.
So are we teaching, do we have any electives on personal finance right now? Or is this going to be a whole new class because of the requirement?
So it is a whole new standalone class. We do have some of the standards already embedded into our economics courses that students take their senior year, but not the totality of the standards that they're asking us to meet through personal finance.
So what will this course teach? Do you know?
Well, if you look at the standards, credit and debt, helping students understand how to build their credit. This is the one, I'm sorry. So I'm not sure what happened to that, but I'll just go over it. So credit and debt, banking, investing, savings, and repayment of loans, budgeting, spending, and money management. So how to budget and manage your money. That's the part that I think lots of parents are excited about. Personal income, taxes, and services. So we'll teach some basic skills and concepts around how to do your taxes. And then maintaining financial well-being. So preparing for your future. Yeah.
I'll get that and send that out on Friday to everybody, just so you have it to actually look at.
So any questions on either the ODE change in requirements or the new course proposals?
Just how we as a board can support you in these. I think these are both really good ideas, and Yeah, they may have had that 30 years ago, but 20 years ago they did not have a lot of that. And I remember lamenting that in college that I didn't learn things in high school. So how can we as a board support you?
Oh, thanks for asking. You know, I just, again, I think the support that you provide here and listening to the things that we believe are valuable to students to offer, but also in the shift in ODE requirements, it's always a challenge to try to figure out when ODE changes the requirements, how we do it in a cost neutral way. Especially given our district's financial situation, but we're going to try to get as creative as we can. We may have to add a little bit of full-time equivalency or FTE, but not a lot, I don't believe. So thanks.
So we'll bring this back for action. We'll bring this back for action at the next meeting, and I'll get the standards sent out to everybody so you can at least take a look at what the standards are in that course.
So shall we go ahead and just move on to course fees? Okay. So you also have a list of the proposed 2025-2026 course fees. Not a lot of changes. There have been a few changes, and those are going to be highlighted. I'll scroll down so that I can just address those with you. So every year the AP test goes up $1. And so it always rises by $1, and it currently stands at $99 for next year. It actually is less than that, but the reason that we listed at $99 is because there's a state reimbursement where we get a certain amount of money. We need to make sure that we get that every year, but we want to be public about how much the overall test cost is. And then we deduct that from what students pay when we know that the state will be reimbursing us a portion of that. So multimedia storytelling was a course that we proposed last year. We did not attach a fee to it, but there are some fee requirements to that course, much like photography or some of the other CTE courses that have consumable supplies and materials. National Honor Society raising to $20. I think that's much driven by national standards. Veterinary science, again, just consumable supplies and materials with that class. We're actually getting that class kind of up and running. It's been dormant for several years since one of our teachers retired pre-COVID. So we're now getting that up and running again. And then no surprise to probably most of you, but welding is going up a little bit. The cost of materials for welding is extremely high. And while we do have a small building budget for some of it, it does not cover all of the materials that we need. The last increase is in PE uniforms. We have been working from a budget deficit in purchasing PE uniforms for the past several years. We haven't really raised the prices for those. So we're trying to at least get back to zero in terms of how much PE uniforms cost. And so we've raised those prices just enough to be able to break even.
Hey, Tammy, I was just curious, if you buy the short shirts and lock, it's $28. But if you bought them separately, it'd be 36. Why the $6 less if you're?
Yeah, you know what? That is a great question that preceded my tenure in this district. They've always done it that way, where if you buy it as a total package, you get a little bit of a discount. They try to provide a discount. So I believe that the shorts, t-shirt, and lock in totality is actually the break-even point of $28.
Students are able to bring in their own shirt, shorts, lock.
Yeah, if they have, so if they have, our district has a uniform, PE uniform policy. So if they have a t-shirt from middle school that still fits them that they want to bring in, they absolutely can bring it. We also don't, as with all course fees, don't charge to students who can't afford those.
Okay, so I guess I didn't realize that there's like an actual uniform. Okay.
Yep.
And at the high school, the resource room does have uniform pieces that students can come in and get as well.
I think that was also news to me, because I just wore shorts and a t-shirt
Yep.
back in the day. Do we know why that changed? It's been a
Oh,
while
I'm-
since I was in high school, but
I'm going to put my interim superintendent on the spot because he was here before I was, and I'm not sure if you know why.
It was, well, I'll do it because unless you want to speak, I'm not trying to overspeak you, but my kids all went through this during the change. It was just because of the difference of wear that the different sexes wore. And they're just trying to standardize it and keep it plain and just,
Just-
so.
just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, I would, but I'm not going to get used to that. Yeah, in the 6 years I was here, I think it was more just trying to make sure that kids were wearing clothing that was amenable to the physical activity that they were doing. And they work really hard to make sure that any kid that can't afford it gets it. But it also kind of changed the way in which kids interact in the classes. And having been in other districts that doesn't do this, it's nice. And again, it's interesting because in many districts they've gone away from this. But there is something about everybody getting dressed down and going out to participate in an activity that actually is helpful.
I'm sure it also cuts down on either or if any students cutting their sleeves off, and I've seen all genders with it as low as possible. So yeah, I guess I think I'm with a lot of my fellow board members. I didn't know that was a thing in Newburgh, and thank you for explaining.
Yeah, they also work really hard because there are some students that this still doesn't work for, and that we work with those students. So, but again, I think the idea here is to get kids to participate and get active.
I know Chair Bridges mentioned the resource room, and you mentioned that families are not charged. Can you just, for the good of the public, I guess, just walk me through the process for a family that, may be able to pay some fees, but not another fee? Some of these seem kind of seasonal with sports, and then, AP tests at the end of the year. How are families supported throughout this process?
So our district moved to basically free lunches, free breakfast and lunches for all families, but we still use the income chart that some schools have to abide by in terms of whether, determining whether a student gets free or reduced lunch. We use the same chart when it comes to course fees. So if they would have fallen on the reduced lunch rate, we reduce their fees. And then if they would fall on the free lunch rate, then we would waive those fees. AP exams, I have a student body account that sits there and does have a small balance so that we can scholarship students who need it as well. Some students choose to take 4 or 5 AP exams, and that's a lot of money. And so sometimes we're able to scholarship students who can't afford all of that. So,
Thank you.
On that free reduced lunch calculation, do families still need to fill out the actual form that they used to have to do for the lunches so that the school knows that? Because I assume that people aren't filling it out as much since we don't need it.
correct. And so what we do is we use those income guidelines and, by the honesty, we have an honesty factor in terms of, folks filling that out and indicating how much their household income is. So, but they don't for free and reduced lunch.
I actually have one more question. I'm just curious about the multimedia storytelling. I assume that there aren't a lot of actual consumables. Is a lot of that money like going to a fund so that we can upgrade and get the programs updated when they need to be updated and those kind of charges?
So there actually are consumables with that because students are printing, media for, they're creating multimedia, they're printing things. And so there is some cost associated with it. But are you speaking of like money to upgrade like technology? Is that?
Yeah, just I guess in my head I was thinking of a certain multimedia that wouldn't have consumables
Sure.
necessarily. But I guess that does make sense. But
Yeah.
yeah, also I'm just thinking, is there I don't know, I should probably know better, but how much is budgeted towards those kind of upgrades for those kinds of classes to make sure that we have the software that's available?
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah, the student fees wouldn't be used, wouldn't be proper. The student fees, it wouldn't be proper to use them in that way. It really is about consumables or things that even sometimes we can bend that a little bit, that things that get consumed in the use. But one of the things, the conversations I'm having with tech right now is to develop a 10-year plan for replacement. Again, we need to kind of have that in a budget. We're having the same conversation about adoptions and curriculum, because all of these things need to get budgeted and have a long-term plan for how much we save each year to do those things. So that we are starting to talk about and tackle some of that.
I'm curious about something on the uniforms, and I don't know if this is devil's advocate or what, but if having standardized uniforms for PE works so well for participation, have we ever considered school uniforms?
Moving on. No.
I wouldn't say that I've tackled that. I think for some folks that would be a positive, and for other folks it would be not. But I mean, I think that would be a great conversation to open up with our students. But I wouldn't say that I've really gone very far into that. Again, there's a lot of money that gets spent to dress kids, and having a more standard, there's some positives to that. But I'd also say, boy, we got a lot of things rolling on right now. That's probably not on my dance card.
No, I was kind of playing devil's advocate in that, you know, if it works so well for PE, then why wouldn't we extend that?
Yeah.
So.
Without making this a larger conversation, I would actually be interested in, do we know how much participation has increased based on those changes in uniform?
So we've been doing this for 20, 30 years, something like that. So I don't think I would have noticed much change. It's more just how we've done things. So I don't know if I have like.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been less than 20 because yeah, 06.
Okay,
We
there
didn't
you
have
go,
it.
there you go.
But yeah, so I'm genuinely curious because I do understand why it would make sense that it could. But yeah, on a larger conversation, I think that would be important to find out before we make other assumptions based on it.
Okay, thanks, Tammy. Why don't you stick around and we'll just go into the cell phone. Were you finished, Tammy? Yeah. Do you mind sticking around for the cell phone conversation? Yeah. So let's move into the cell phone conversation. Director Hayden, you want to?
Well, I'll just bring up the concerns or why I think it should be talked about. One from our leadership side communicating with us that, hey, that sounds like the high school may have something they may want to introduce as soon as this winter break's done. So as soon as, January 3rd or 4th. Then also that if we go back to our meetings, this was something that started from a policy discussion item to bring forth as a policy. And that Tammy is gracious, took this on from a high school perspective and get people and community involved and come up with suggestions. But to me, it was about needing to come back and present this to the board before we move forward with anything, either update a board policy and or do something else. This is the only meeting this month. Can't necessarily say we're going to introduce a new policy and then approve it without doing a meeting lapse, right? And so yeah, that kind of from the board perspective. My daughter's in high school, and basically the communication from teachers is we're the board and we're nasty and we are going to introduce this policy. And I get it, but like everybody's saying it's the board and nothing's been officially like come forward. So it's the fact that we're already the bad guys when something official has not been presented. Just is not good light.
Sure, let's
So-
talk about it. I think here's kind of where we're at with cell phone policies. And we've got a policy, it's JFCEB. And basically there's, it's still a good policy. There's one part where it says PEDs, cell phones, including those with the capacity to take pictures, shall be turned off during class time unless permitted for educational purposes at the discretion of the classroom teacher and at any other time when such use of the device would cause a disruption of school activities. The middle school has they've taken this policy and they've created what we would call administrative rules. They've set up a system by which they manage the cell phones in their building. In the middle schools, it's off and away, and away means in the locker. The high school has gone out and done work, and we can come back to kind of the presentation part of this, and worked with students, staff to kind of, again, take this policy and create some administrative rules from it, which are basically they're proposing, and they have not presented this to you yet, away and away, which is either in a backpack off and away or in a caddy at the back of the classroom. I think it would be in our best interest to look at this policy and adjust it slightly because of each of the levels of school kind of have, there's some like growth appropriateness to the policies, which is at the middle school, just keeping that in the lockers is more appropriate than having them in the classroom. At the high school, kids are older, more mature. There's more freedom left in some of these decisions, but we still want to stop the discretion. So I would throw it back to the board. How do we want to go about doing this? Because they are ready to move, but if that means that they need to come and present to the board first so you can see exactly it started there, that's totally appropriate. I don't have a problem with that. We could also, let's just stop there and let's see, what do you want to have happen before we move forward? They're not actually in violation of this policy and what they're doing, but again, everything that we're doing, we're trying to be transparent. And if this isn't transparent, then let's make it transparent is kind of where I would go. So,
I mean, my thoughts are that it would appear that generally every day is against board policy, what's happening in schools, that the phones are on, that can take pictures. So it's this idea again of like a policy doesn't work if it doesn't have teeth to do anything or no one's following it. I think that there is something to be said about actually taking on this policy as a board and a larger scope here. My thought on what's happening that we've been told about is it feels very much like every classroom and every teacher is going to have different ways that they enforce cell phones to some degree. I've heard from students that some teachers are a lot more strict about getting them away, and maybe that some teachers have more goodwill from their students to listen in that way. In other classrooms, they just are out always. And that is hearsay. I'm not in those classrooms. But so this idea of trying to do something that is within the policy, I don't have a problem with that. I think that it's good to get moving in any way that we can try to remove phones from being a distraction to the learning environment. But I do think that long-term, we do need to have a policy that makes sense with schools, that takes into account the different levels of schools and how they are different. But I don't think we could get that done by the end of winter break. I don't think we can get that done this year and do it really well in a way that makes sense for all parties.
Yeah, I definitely would like to hear what you guys at the high school came up with. I know at the board side too, we did talk, I know this before your tenure, Dave, but we talked about ways that we can update the policy to better support the high school, some problems that you guys were having at the high school and some gaps in the policy where parents were trying to push back, as well as some things that were coming from ODE and things like that were going to come. And we wanted to I think where we left it as a board was we wanted to have the high school and get some feedback from parents and students and staff, and it sounds like they've done that, and this could be a good start with their away policy. But also, yeah, I think at some point we do need to come back, see what's working with that, but also make sure we're in alignment and with some other districts that are with all these negative effects. We talked about some of those, but also some of the problems with that we also foresaw some potential problems, which I think was going to be part of these discussion groups. So yeah, because as Saul said, we were talking about doing a policy at some point to reflect a better way to support what needs to be done so that there aren't as many gaps, and so that you can fall back on board policy when you have to make that those at the high school administrators, when you know they have to enforce the away policy. If there's nothing in policy, for example, saying that you can take cell phones away, then parents are going to push back. So those are some of the discussion points we've had before.
So is there an AR with this?
No.
Okay.
Not a current one.
Yeah, I guess from my kids that are in the high school, the feedback or the impression is that they've heard that there's a cell phone policy coming down the pike, but we have one already. It just hasn't been enforced. It sounds like.
It's pretty general, which is, I think what they've done is kind of get more specific about how we're going to actually do the action. Like, what exactly is this like? And it also, again, our middle schools do something different. So again, I think as we look at this policy and the how we deal with the phone when the kids don't follow the rules, having that in policy, that, yeah, I mean, I could see that. I was just also trying to figure out how we allow for, because we haven't really talked about elementary school yet. And that's probably going to look even more different. And I will say that what I heard was from the parents, it's really about they still want their kids to have that phone so there is an ability to communicate with them. And so the whole idea that we're going to be able to not have a phone in school, I don't think is really supportable. But how we deal with the away part, I think is more.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, well, I have my own views on cell phones in school. I think that they are a distraction.
Mhm.
I think that there's ways of addressing maybe some of the major concerns, parents being able to get a hold of their kids. I mean, we've done this for decades, right? I mean, you can call the office, they can get a hold of you if it's an emergency, you know, stuff like that. But I would say, you know, we need to be consistent, right? Across grade levels and stuff like that. And if we're going to have a policy, then we need to enforce it. And I think just like the photo camera in town, right? They gave it, you know, I don't know, what was it, a month to get familiar with it. Yeah, grace period. So, you know, maybe you do something like that, but yeah, yeah.
There's so many different levels of this that I agree with and that I have concerns about. I think our current policy, the very last line of the policy is that the superintendent shall develop administrative regulations to implement this policy. So I think the way that our policy is written now, although I do think it is not specific enough, and I do think it needs to be at minimum just updated to 2024, 2025 language. I mean, technology has changed significantly since this was last updated. But I would love to hear from Tammy just what it's looking like and what the proposal even is, and the specifics of that, and maybe some information that came from the student group.
And well, if you're going to answer that now, great. And I just want to make sure it's clear. Oh, this is all just from transparency. Is on the September 10th meeting, we said Tammy's going to take it away and come back to the board. And this is all about just didn't want something to go in place without the transparency of we're coming back to the table, and that's why I brought the subject back up.
Yeah,
That's all,
exactly.
so.
But I think that's a good, there's a bunch of work that Tammy will be able to present on, and do you want on January 10th for her to come and present that to you. We could do it right now, but I get worried that we want to do it well. What would you like?
I mean, I would go, what would you like?
Well, to be transparent, we have done a lot of work, and a lot of this was initiated at that board meeting back in September. So when we started working through this policy group, of which one of our student representatives was there, it became apparent very quickly that we were looking less at actual board policy change, because we are still adhering to the board policy, and more about what does this look like at the high school. So what I can tell you is that the middle schools already have their policy in place. They've had it for years, and it's just been kind of free range at the high school. But we're seeing, I think someone mentioned, the need for consistency and fidelity in implementing a policy. And then also our focus has to be on rigor and academics. And when we have phones in classrooms, the distractions are exponential. We are not capitalizing on our academic time in classrooms because we have too many distractions with our cell phones. So the intent became in our group to create a policy that from the time students walk into the classroom until the time they leave. And I'm going to go back and say, I don't want to use the word policy. I think we're using it interchangeably. What I mean, and what we have really rolled this out as, is a new way of operating at the high school with some student guidelines and some teacher guidelines, and I provided those. So just to give you a quick snapshot of what we've done, we started this conversation in August. I came to the board meeting in September. We put together a cell phone committee comprised of students, parents, teachers, and admin. We met on October 2nd and again on October 8th. We went through a brainstorming session for a cell phone problem of practice. We also worked with our staff on October 2nd and did kind of the same thing, a problem of practice. What are you seeing? What needs to be fixed? On October 22nd, we drafted language and guidance, and we sent Mr. Patterson, my assistant principal, and I sent it to our policy committee for review. We got feedback from members of our policy committee. And then we sent the draft language and guidance to our actual staff and solicited feedback from them. On November 15th, we provided the updated proposals to parents in Newburgh Nation Weekly. We solicited feedback from parents. We sent out a Google form. And then as we move forward, the plan is communication to parents of the policy change in Newburgh Nation Weekly for the next 3 weeks, in addition to an email that I'm going to send out. We're also sending out supplemental research links. And then again, we've developed a student guide and a teacher guide. Again, the issue is rigor, focus on academics, and then implementing something with consistency. I think you mentioned, I've heard rumors or people have said, the teachers are all over the board. We cannot continue to do that. If we want our classrooms to function well, if we want to maximize our time with students, then we've got to implement this with fidelity. And so really the impetus of moving forward is about that. It has nothing to do with what our current board policy is, because we're meeting the guidelines of our board policy. Do I think that maybe you guys should, take a look and try to tackle it from a board policy? Yes, absolutely. I think that was really the impetus of the initial meeting. But I want to be clear, we're not changing anything with policy. And I'm not sure where the communication is coming from that the board's the big bad person, because that's the first I've ever heard of it. Most of the feedback from parents has been really positive, really positive.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, and if we have to be the big bad guys that make it so that cell phones aren't used in school, then that's okay. Especially we didn't, yeah. But I think that it's important to realize the difference between our policy and what your school is doing, what the middle schools are doing, to fit that into how it should be done in the classrooms there, since we're not doing that. We're not here to decide what happens in every classroom. So I appreciate you taking that on. And I hope that it goes well.
I-
So has this been implemented yet?
No, our projected timeline was to begin on January 8th when students returned from winter break. I will tell you that even before we drafted the guidelines, some teachers were already doing this. They had just, and Oliver, if you want to speak to this, you probably can. There are some teachers that have just said, I have got to, especially in a year where we have 8 furlough days, I have got to maximize every minute in the classroom. And so some of the students are already getting used to this. And then I think for trimester 2, some teachers already decided, you know, I'm gonna do the trial run before winter break, and then we're full bore on January 8th. If you feel like I need to come back at the January board meeting and provide additional information aside from what I've already shared with you, I can do that. We can pause on implementing it on January 8th, but the communication has already gone out to parents and will continue to go out to parents over winter break. So I'm open to suggestions.
Yeah,
I- Go ahead.
yeah, I was just hearing that some of the teachers were already leaning forward and implementing this, so. I don't know if that causes confusion with the kids or,
Well,
no.
I don't think it should, because right now, again, it's the wild, wild west. Some teachers are implementing it and have been for years. I think some of the teachers who have been reticent to implement are doing the trial run right now.
Okay.
So
And how's our communication to the students that this is upcoming, what to expect and stuff? I mean, communication is key,
yeah,
right?
absolutely. So again, all of the student and teacher guidance has been included in the communication with parents. I'm asking teachers to do some communication over the next 2 weeks with their students just to prepare them. And again, I've had some teachers actually doing that even earlier, starting to prepare students that there will likely be a change coming, because we've been having multiple conversations at staff meetings. So
Yeah, and so when you say out and away, you're talking like backpacks, there's no communal area where they're putting their cell phones, or I guess my concern, that's kind of what I was hearing. I may have misinterpreted that, but
Yeah.
you know how kids are. I
Yeah.
would certainly hate to have phones start missing and people messing with stuff.
Yep,
that create a bigger
absolutely.
issue.
I think we heard parents loud and clear that so we are not in the business of taking away student phones in the classroom. But I have given teachers 2 options. They have one of 2 options of how to approach this work. Number 1, they can have a cell phone caddy in the room where students put the cell phones visibly in a caddy. They will have eyes on their phones at all times, and it will be with them in the room. Or they can ask students to put it away in the backpack. And what that means is you put it in your backpack and you zip it up and you don't touch it again until class is over. So those are the only 2 options that teachers have.
I just wanted to say, you've done a lot of background work. I mean, all the committees you had and the meetings you've had with teachers, I want to thank you for that. And I would just like to hear Oliver say, you know, as a student, you know, what have you've been serving on the committee with other students, I assume a couple other students, and what's the feedback you're getting? It seems like you're well organized, and I appreciate that.
So, the current from the student perspective, from my own perspective and what I've heard about the policy is, at the beginning of trimester 2, I've heard a lot about people saying things like, "Oh, here's the cell phone policy." Some I think I heard the board mentioned once, but some of it's like, "Oh, here's the cell phone policy." There's like a little bit of complaining, but I haven't heard too much yet. I know in my anatomy and physiology class, Miss Kiana has, this was a few weeks ago or a week or 2 ago that she started this policy, or preparing this policy, definitely as response to writing the new one, where phones are off and away unless it is like independent work or study time where they could be a tool. I know that I have a flashcard app that I use for memorizing, and it's very useful in that class. And I have a to-do list that I like type everything up on, so it's useful during that time. But that's one of the earliest policies that I had before even trimester 2 was like off and away except during time. And if it's during instruction time or if it's distracting, the phone gets taken away and put in the pocket for 2 weeks. So that's the current policy, the one that I like know is the most like concrete that I've heard of from a singular teacher so far. I think it's pretty solid. I'm sure it works. There's a list of names on the board from one of the other classes that definitely has younger students in it. There's a long list of names, but it seems to be working. I haven't heard many complaints about that one. That's the one I've had the longest, and then I've heard some discussion within the past few days about the policy. But I mean, the trimester just started. I don't know how it's gonna pan out with the rest of the teachers. So, and of course, it hasn't officially started yet. But I think a fair amount of the student body has assumed that it has just started because of how the trimester is starting now. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. I personally, I don't think I need an update in January. I'd like to see a couple of things. I'd like to see maybe in a few months and see how that works. I know we talked about it being an addiction at one of our last meetings, and that's going to take some time. And also just any change is going to take some time. So I'd like to see a couple of things. One, how it rolls out. So maybe, I don't know, March or April, maybe see how it's working, where the gaps are. And then and at some point, I think before we tackle it as a policy itself, as a board level, maybe see how it rolls out at the high school and these other schools, and then find out where the gaps are, where you need policy. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we want to support you in more rigorous academics. So I would rather wait and not do something now that is going to conflict, or we do something now and then you find out something's not working. So I'd like to see it play out a little bit, then come back to policy. I'd also like to see, I mean, we are so close. We talked about it. Something's coming from the state at some point, I think. Maybe find out what that is. And since we are so close, as well as what's going on there, and then we can kind of tackle it all at once. I mean, I think the policy committee can start talking about it, about updating the language, but I think any final stuff brought to the board I want to see how this plays out. And then I want to see what we need from the state and from you guys. And then we can just do it all at once and make the board policy reflect what is and is not working. So that's my personal opinion on it.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with that. I think that there is no part, well, in my opinion, we should not do anything to hold you back from the progress you've already made and the work that you've already done. And I think that forward momentum with high schoolers is a good thing, and I want you to keep rolling on that. So I think that the timeline that you're on, and it makes sense with winter break. And yeah, I would love to have an update mid-spring and get moving on our policy update. But I think we do need to take our time with it, knowing that we have possible state changes coming our way. I want to be sensitive to the experiences that you will have over the next couple of months, to the feedback from the educators. And then I think maybe at that point in the spring, we could also hear from our middle schools and the things that they've been, sounds like, successfully doing. And then, like Dave mentioned, we do need to consider elementary at some point with this, because that is a issue as well. So making our policy, it's like I want our policy to be specific, but also not too specific, because I do think that we're not the boots on the ground in the school. That should be up to the superintendent and the administrators.
Yeah, I don't need an update. I just wanted to have this update because it was publicly talked about, and I think this closes that loop, honestly. And that's all it was, because you were going to take stuff away and maybe push the fact that, like, hey, we need an update sooner than you wanted. But I just wanted to make sure it was kind of closing the loop publicly at the board level. Agree with everything else at this point that we should tackle it, but let's give it some time. And yeah, I'd love to see results. So, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. I think it's time for you to go home. Thanks, Tammy. Okay, so we're going to move on to our budget committee applications. We have received 8 now applications. And at this part of the agenda, I just want to talk about the process. Has everybody had an opportunity to read the 8 applications?
Can you remind us how many openings we have? And
We have 3,
Okay.
Zone 1,
5.
5, and 6. And we have received applications for each of the zones.
some of them don't
So
have
the
them marked.
Yeah,
on
2
there.
of them don't have them marked. Do we know if they're 1, 5, or 6?
Luckily, we have somebody who loves to do research. Director Woodward, would you like to step in?
When I got these, I thought, since our board policy says to appoint, this is policy DVEA, by the way, to appoint by zones, and unless there's someone who doesn't apply from that zone. And so zone 1 is Deborah Burkle.
Okay.
And what I did is I took it's not on the public thing, but we had their addresses, and then I superimposed that with the zones and their address on the school board. Zone 5, Aubrey, that's your zone, is Rogers Karneski, and then Crawcraft.
Austin Crockett?
Yeah.
Okay,
and
so
then
that's the one.
Wait, okay, so,
Zone 5.
Slow down just a
Five.
little bit.
okay, so we have Austin
Austin
Craft,
and
okay,
then
is Zone 5.
And Rogers Zarnacki is Zone 5, and Sarah Staples Kelly is Zone 5. And then in Zone 6, there are 4 applicants, and I just have last names down here, but you would find them. Sherwood, Steve Sherwood, Costello, Greg Costello, Teslo, Katie, and then Brown Judy is Zone 6. So according to our policy, unless someone would have an objection, you would appoint 1 person from Zone 1, and then one of those 3 from Zone 5, and 1 of the 4 from Zone 6.
Just to clarify, so we only had people apply from the zones for the zones.
That should have been what happened.
That's-
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know that at a certain point we were thinking that there weren't enough, so I feel like we had sent out a larger feeler. I'm just,
Well,
I
I
guess,
think,
commenting because.
Well, the policy is that if there weren't someone from that zone, if there was no one from Zone 1, say, then you can appoint someone from another zone.
Yeah, I guess it's just more, yeah. It's fantastic.
yeah, so there was, I think, not every one of these has actually the date it was received, but maybe just Deborah Burkles. So I think that what I'd like to, if we feel comfortable and ready to make decisions tonight, I guess what I would anticipate is the board representative from Zone 1 would make a recommendation as to who to fill that spot for their zone, and then we would vote on it. If people are feeling comfortable enough to do that tonight, I would really like to do that. If people need a minute to sort of refresh your memory about who's in what zone, and we can also do that. Do we feel like yours is super easy? Are we comfortable sort of making a decision tonight? Okay, so then we can, maybe what we'll do is we'll do the financial report and then come back under board actions, just go back up to the committee members. Oh, we'll have Gay Ellen also do the budget calendar since she's there to talk about that. Okay, so it sounds like we have a plan. And we have Gay Ellen. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Hooray.
So good evening. As we start, I want to apologize for a couple of things. One is I have a bad cough and my voice isn't very good. So if I have to pause for a moment, just understand that it's because of that. And secondly, the pages are slightly out of order. So page 2 really should be page 3, and page 3 should be page 2. So, excuse me. The latest financial projections as of November 30th still show us having a positive ending fund balance of approximately $786,000. This is down slightly from the September 30 projections that you saw at the last board meeting due to a couple of factors. One is some slight increases in expenditures and some adjustments to revenue. We have received the first tax turnovers of the year. I pulled this right at November 30th, and there were a few that had not come in yet. We're coming in that following week. I have not updated it, but we have gotten our first tax turnovers, and we're looking to be on track. Once we have the December turnovers in, we'll have a much better feel, but right now I've left it at the projected amount that we have currently of 20.6 million. But I do believe it'll come in a little bit over that. But until I see exactly what the December numbers are, I won't have that full picture. We didn't receive 3 payments each from each of the counties just because of the way the Thanksgiving holiday fell this year. So once we have December, we'll have a better idea of that. But it's looking strong still. I have increased the state school fund estimate to include the anticipated May adjustment from last year in the amount of $2.5 million. Revenue also includes the final 23-24 ending fund balance of a negative 1.2 million. Those two were in there. I have adjusted the state school balance slightly from the last excuse me, from the last estimate that I gave you. If you go to the expenditures page, which shows expenditures both by object and by function, the object, I believe, is a little bit easier to kind of digest, but I show you function also because of appropriation levels. That's what the budget committee and the board, excuse me, approve and adopt. Expenditures, I'm estimating them to be in excess of our total budget, currently by $266,000. That's that negative amount in the middle column. So we will definitely need to do a supplemental budget, and I have talked about that, but I will be bringing that probably in the either the January or the February board meeting, most likely February, because we'll have a much better feel by then. As long as we're have not spent into excess, we are fine starting having a supplemental budget, as long as we haven't started actually expending into that, which we haven't, and we won't by February. Excuse me. I'm projecting to spend more than budget in the objects of salaries, purchase services, and other objects. There's a small overage in capital outlay, but that actually will probably be moved out of capital outlay because it's really a lease payment that we need to move. We just haven't done a journal entry for that, and I hope to have that done by the next board meeting. If we can limit our outside contracts, which we have been very successful at doing this year, especially through the SPED contracts, we have really held our expenditures down there. We should be able to stay within my projected budget amount. We have seriously under budgeted in this object in prior years, and we are slightly under budgeted this year. I know that we will be over in utilities. which I've projected there, utilities and a few other areas. So as we look at budgeting for next year, we will be increasing those pockets in purchase services. We still need to be mindful and remind all of our cost centers to keep their spending as low as possible as we finish the remainder of the year. But I believe that we will finish with a positive ending fund balance. Okay. So those are revenues and expenditures and where I expect them to be at this point at almost halfway through the year. The next page, the original page 2, that is really page 3, shows our appropriations levels and categories for spending to date and encumbrances so that we can see where we might fall out of appropriation levels. And so far for general fund and currently for special revenue funds, we're looking and debt service, we're looking fine. Where we don't look fine is in the bond. And the bond fund, I believe we were under budgeted for our beginning fund balance and also for, we haven't had a reconciliation of revenue and expenditures in bonds since the bond began. I'll just be really blunt. And I have been putting that together. One of the things that we haven't been accounting for as far as looking at what our balance is some of the interest revenue that we've had. So we haven't been adequately budgeting for some of our fund balance. And the other piece is, so we need to increase our budget for the overall fund. And the other piece is that we have a lot of encumbrances there that are encumbered at the maximum amount of what the contract, either the contract was or what we were expecting to originally spend for a budgeted item or a budgeted a bond project that we may not actually be expending. So some of those encumbrances will fall off when the projects are completed, and some of them haven't been cleaned up yet. So we have sort of a twofold thing going on here where we have budget, or we have a beginning fund balance that we still need to spend that we didn't budget for, and we have encumbrances that are probably a little too large. But what I would suggest is when we do our supplemental budget, we will increase the overall so that we have plenty of room to cover the bond. And then the other piece is in our special revenue funds, although it doesn't show that we'll be out of appropriations. That's because most of our grants are on a reimbursement basis, except for some of the new grants that we haven't received some of our funding for yet. We need to increase the total budget for our special revenue funds for about 5 or 6 grants that we've received this year that were not budgeted for at the beginning of the year because we didn't know we were getting them. So we will need to do a supplemental budget for general fund, for special revenue funds, and for our facilities fund, our bond fund. But PERS and debt service is looking good. Excuse me. So that's where we are for, excuse me, appropriations. The final page that we have is the state school fund reconciliation page, which again, I apologize. You'll notice there's a column that says G estimate 11/13/24. Before when we had our last board meeting, I was commenting that I would be adjusting our state school fund estimate with our estimate of membership and revenue with the state. And this is what I have done. I have adjusted our property taxes up to 21.4 million. Again, not a huge jump, 800, not quite 800,000. And then I also increased the transportation grant from 4.5 million to 5.1 million, because that's 5.1 is what we actually expended in 23-24, and we will expend at least that much in 24-25. So that brings us down to a new estimate of 31.5 million. And if you compare that to what we actually have budgeted on the first page of revenue, is that negative 2.5 million. That's the 2.5 million that I have increased for the May adjustment that I walked you through a couple of meetings ago. So that is your financial update. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Galen? Maybe you could email him so she doesn't have to answer. No? Okay. Thanks, Galen. All right. So,
Feel better.
yeah, well, we've got to have her do the budget calendar.
Right. So the budget calendar is next. And there are two differences from prior year's budget calendars. The first is moving the committee meetings up a few weeks and starting official meetings in April. So they would be in April and May, early May, so that we finish and have time to get the budget actually put together and ready, and we don't have to worry about publication deadlines, et cetera, for the board meeting June 10th. If the meeting was later in the month, it would be a little bit different, but by having it June 10th, we want to have enough. We have to have at least 2 weeks notice for the, or not 2 weeks notice, but it takes at least 2 weeks to get the notice in, have it posted for 5 days, and then have the board meeting. So that's the first change. The second change is moving from 3 official meetings to 2 official meetings. And I believe with the addition of a budget variance document at the first meeting that goes through the explanations of the major variances between prior year's budget and the proposed budget, that the time needed to go through the budget line by line will be greatly reduced. And the explanation of what really has changed between prior year and current year, or current year and proposed year, will be pretty clear as to what the differences are. I have a document that prepares differences by object, so major objects, and then also by major functions. And we're not just talking the 1000s, but I would say all of the major instructional functions and the major support functions, so that you can see where we have moved or changed appropriation levels, and then what that explanation is. We had to add, X number of FTE at the high school, so function 1131 has gone up significantly due to adding FTE at the high school. Or if it's something in the SPED function levels, an explanation of what happened there. Of course, there will be an overall explanation of what our changes are in salaries and benefits. So if the cost of health insurance goes up by 6%, I'm not saying it is, I'm just giving an example. It would say that the 200s went up by 3%, due mostly to a 6% increase in health insurance and other levels staying the same. So you get a much better idea of what has happened between one budget year and the next, with an explanation of some of the major variances within the current years, what's been spent to budget as we're looking at that point. So I believe that it will bring that time down that's needed for that explanation. We'll have the budget message, the variance document description, and then there'll be more time actually for the discussion and questions from the budget committee, even though we've reduced it from 3 to 2. So that's, and we will still have the budget work session in February, that will have budget training for new members, sharing the budget process and parameters, as well as general budget questions at that time before the budget has actually been proposed. So that is my proposal of the budget calendar.
Thank you. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I move that the Newburgh Dundee Public Schools Board of Directors approve the budget calendar for 2025-26 as presented.
Second.
Any further questions?
I just have one thought that what happens if those 2 meetings don't get us to the point where everyone has agreed? Is there any wiggle room to add an extra meeting so that the concerns of the budget committee, if they're not fulfilled in those 2 meetings, have time so it's not bumped up against that? I hope that it doesn't happen, but I know that it has previously happened on different budget committees I've been on. So I would just, it feels like it would be good to plan for a possibility of that.
We had time by having a full month, May 6th to June 10th. If we needed to have one the following week, we could probably, or I don't know if that runs into a board meeting at that point, but we as long as we have 2 full weeks between the final budget committee meeting and the budget hearing, we should be okay.
So I guess, yeah, I
If
love
we
how
needed to, we should have time.
I love how much time there is. I just wanted to confirm that we didn't need to have that at this point, or if we would have that authority to extend another meeting later on.
We do. What I've seen in other budget processes is, again, after the May 6th meeting, if there's a need to convene either the whole committee or subcommittees to do some more work, we've done that before, like on the Thursday, and kind of other meetings too. Usually it's when we're cutting that I see the need. There's more conversation that needs to happen. But yes, we can.
Are you done? Okay, sorry. One more point of clarification, and Oliver actually pointed out. So you made the motion for 25-26 calendar, but it's titled 24-25 budget calendar. So do we need to amend one of
Thank you
those?
for noticing that. I'm terribly sorry about that.
No worries.
Thank you, Oliver.
Okay, so we'll amend the years on this, and I have a first and a second. So can we call for the question? All in favor? Aye, opposed? We're all good? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Gail. And you do have one thing on, are you okay to
Yes.
just stick around? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
Should we just do that next? Let her go?
Yeah, we could move up to, what did I just do? Oh, here it is.
It is an action item.
Yeah. Do
Yes.
you want to just do the one that you have and then? For
And
the
I'm
ex-
happy, I'm happy to do
Okay.
that.
Yep.
I'll turn my camera back on again. I have to get down there. We are, I'm asking for an extension of the personal services contract for Andre Shellhaus, who has been working on our audit, as well as she is helping with some of the technical aspects of the budget blocking process within Visions. And we had hoped to have the audit completed, but it is not yet. And she and I are both working with our auditors to get that finished before the end of the year. But they will not be presenting until the January board meeting. And so I'm asking for an extension of time for her. I believe it's extended considerably longer than we'll need, but an extension of her time as well as an extension in the cost of her total contract by $40,000. And I mean, not 40, to a maximum payment of $40,000.
Is there a motion?
I move that the Newburgh School District Board of Directors amend Ms. Shayla's personal services contract to February 28, 2025, and increasing the maximum total payment amount from 25,000 to 40,000.
Second.
Any further questions? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Say
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Galen.
Thank you.
Yep, but at least you don't have to speak. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
So pretty much the same. I'm gonna get that. Pretty much the same situation. Our CFO search is continuing and Galen is doing great work. And again, in an effort to make sure that we have her here while we need her, we're asking for a contract extension and then an extension of the total amount from 60,000 to 90,000 total. I am working on the CFO things and there are things happening. So it feels like I don't think we're going to need all of that, but we want to make sure that we have it there.
From 90
It's-
to 120.
It's
Oh,
90
excuse
yep.
me, I'm reading the wrong one. 90 to 120, correct?
Yep.
I move that the Newburgh School District Board of Directors amend Ms. Jacobson's personal services contract by increasing the maximum total payment amount from 90,000 to 120,000.
Second.
Any further questions? We'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay, thank you. So let's see, we're going to circle back to the budget committee. Does everybody feel prepared? Does anybody need 5 minutes to relook at applications? We're all good? Okay. We could take a quick break, sure. Yep, okay, we're going to take a quick break.
Sorry.
Should I just go?
Yeah.
Okay.
to get back from our little break. All right, so now we're going to move into appointing budget committee members, which is very exciting. So we have Zone 1, Zone 5, and Zone 6. Um, Director DeHart, do you have any motion you would like to make?
Correct, there's only one.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to recommend Austin.
Nope. Deborah Burkle is your zone.
Oh. Okay, I'd like to recommend Deborah Burkle for the Zone 1 Budget Committee member.
Second?
Okay. Yeah, so, sorry. Trevor. Yeah, the recommendation motion, yeah. Okay, any questions regarding Ms. Burkle's application? I think she'll be an excellent addition to the budget committee. So call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Deb. So then now we go to Zone 5, and there are a number of applicants from Zone 5. And yeah.
So the Zone 5 applicants were, looks like Sarah Staples Kelly, Austin Cracraft, and Megan Rogers Zarnecki. Are we all on the same page on that?
Yes.
Great. I would like to make a motion to recommend Megan Rogers Zarnecki to the open budget position for Zone 5.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any further questions? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And so motion carries, but we'll go through and vote. A roll call.
Jeremy Hayden, aye.
Aubrey Nichols, aye.
Nancy Woodward, aye.
Deborah Bridges, aye.
James Wolfer, aye.
Saul Allen, aye.
Trevor DeHart, nay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is it appropriate me asking why? I mean, this is, I
Yes, well,
know we're past the vote, but still, I mean, if maybe.
why is, oh, no?
Yeah, I mean, maybe Director DeHart has some inside information that I don't know and like to take into consideration. I mean,
I didn't do further questions, did I? Oh, I
well, you
did.
did, but I just sometimes not until this moment we
Yeah.
realize there's maybe things, and I don't know if
Well-
it's appropriate or not. So
Well, I don't want to speak for Director DeHart, so if you have a,
Well, I think we've already voted on it now.
we have voted on it.
yeah, I mean, I don't know, I don't necessarily want to change it for Zone 6, but it's just like it just seems we didn't have a time to talk about yays and nays and whys. I mean, yeah, we voted, but it's like I don't know. It's just it would have been good to hear if somebody was in opposition, and maybe it's not opposition of Megan. Maybe it's I'm more in favor of Sarah or the other gentleman. But it would just be nice to maybe have more of that conversation going forward. So
Okay.
okay. All right, so we have Zone 6.
I would like to recommend Greg Koskela for Zone 6. I'll give my reasons. I really liked his experience. He, especially here, I think one thing caught my eye was bringing the institutional knowledge back, and I know we're having quite a bit of changeover, and in relation to our budget committee, and bringing some knowledge back to that would be very helpful, especially in light of all the budget woes we've obviously been dealing with. So, as well as his experience being at those budget committee meetings from 2018 to 22, and everyone at his current district. So just a lot of institutional knowledge, both in our district, but as well as district budgets. And I think that's something we definitely need moving forward in our budget committee. So I move to recommend Greg Cascella as budget committee for Zone 6.
Second.
Any questions or comments or concerns?
I do, but your light was on. Are you?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I actually kind of have one. It's just generalized about this zone. I'm glad there's 4 people that signed up. And I will probably be chastised for saying this. There's controversy with 3 of these people. I do not feel that we should go with Greg. I think we should go with Katie. She is a treasurer of PTO councils. I mean, she has good history with the school. She's a great volunteer. I think we need to stay out of. We need to play more of the middle ground on these applicants is my say, and that's all I have to say right now.
I was gonna say she was my second choice. For me, like I said, it was the institutional knowledge here, but I also really liked Katie's experience in there too. So I think you make some fair points as well.
Well, we have a motion. We have are you changing your motion? Nope. Okay. So, we have a call for a question. All in favor of appointing Greg Cascella to Zone 6, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So the motion carries 5 to nay, sorry. Or abstain?
Nay.
Nay. Okay. Motion carries 5 to 7, so let's do roll call.
Jeremy Hayden, nay.
Aubrey Nichols, aye.
Nancy Woodward, aye.
Deborah Bridges, aye.
James Wolver, aye.
Saul Allen, aye.
Trevor DeHart, nay.
Okay. So, and much appreciation to everybody who applied in all of the zones, and thank you for your interest in filling out those important positions.
I'd just like to tag on to what Director Bridges said, that to have 8 different people apply, I think is wonderful. And you put your names out there and be willing to serve says that people are interested in supporting the district. And I really appreciate every application.
And we'll be putting them to work. And so Dave, do you reach out to the board, the budget committee members, and get them a hooray balloon sent to their house, or?
Correct. We'll also get Gail.
And-
Correct. We'll reach out. We'll also have Gail and reach out and just do a little offer, some prep and that kind of thing. So, yep.
Okay.
And who contacts the people that weren't selected? Just to tell them thank you.
I can.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Great. Thank you. All right. Next on the agenda, we are moving into board and superintendent agreements. We have board goals, the board and superintendent operating agreement, board governance agreement, and the board's expectation of the superintendent. I believe that we went through all of these last meeting. And are there any changes or concerns to any of these documents? Dave, do you feel good about these?
Yeah, I feel good about where we're at, and I didn't receive any questions over the couple of weeks. So I think unless there's new questions.
On board's expectations of the superintendent, number 10, we talked about in the parentheses, it says distribute the board agenda by time, day, on day, in parentheses. We talked about actually filling that in.
Which ones?
Board expectations of the superintendent. And then there's like 16 of them, and number 10
Yep.
was I think we just need to make an amendment to that before we pass it? Or strike it? I don't know.
Well, I think I think she sends out that board agenda on Friday, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think we go with by Friday, prior to the regularly scheduled board meetings.
Sounds good.
On Tuesday of the following week, except when major holidays fall on the Friday. Does that work?
Perfect. Yeah, we'll just amend it. I think.
So do we need to vote on each one of these separately?
Yeah.
That's the way they're written.
Yes. Okay. Let's go down the line here.
I move that the Newburgh Dundee Public Schools Board of Directors approve the board goals as presented.
Second.
Any further questions? Call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. So board and superintendent operating agreement.
I move that the Newburgh Dundee Public School Board of Directors approve the board and superintendent operating agreement as presented.
Second?
Any further questions? Call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Board governance agreement.
I'll move that the Newburgh Dundee Public School Board of Directors approve the board governance agreement as presented.
Second.
Any further questions? Hearing none, call for the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
For the,
Board expectations and of the superintendent.
So just before we actually call for it, because we already made an amendment to 10, basically, you know, should we call, I mean, this is more technicalities, I guess. Should we call out also anything that's as soon as possible for any emergency meetings or whatever? I mean, or is this
As soon as practicable.
right? I don't know. I mean, we were kind of being very specific by Fridays before the next board meeting on Tuesdays, et cetera. But that's just for normal board meetings, right? What if we call an emergency or whatever? Is there, should we call it? I don't really care. It's just.
What do you think, Dave?
I'm trying to see if we have, amend to that same sentence, just emergency meetings will be
Yeah,
communicated. as soon as
semicolon or
possible.
whatever. Yeah, something at the end, whatever. I was just. Yeah.
So
Isn't
added
that
on
already
to,
covered in board policy though. This is just expectations, so
It's covered in board policy.
yeah, I think we have that governed in board policy. So this is more, I mean, I could see that, but also like this is more of just expectations. These aren't binding necessarily. It's more
Right.
just this is
Sure.
what our.
Yeah.
So I think we already have that in board policy and this is more of just, hey, we're gonna try to do this as best we can.
I'm fine with that too. I just was, my little analytical mind popped up, so.
There you go.
the calling of an emergency meeting. I'm not gonna do that. Again,
Everybody knock on any wood, any wood, any wood.
but again, I think if something came up, we would again be communicating as soon as possible. So I think we're, yeah.
Okay, did we have a first and a second?
No, we did not. We haven't had a motion yet.
Okay, all right.
I move that the Newburgh Dundee Public School Board of Directors approve the board's expectations of the superintendent outline as amended.
Second.
Any further questions? Call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Woohoo. That's very exciting. Okay. Going to pass around proclamation and Wait till everybody gets one. Do we have one? Do we have an extra one for Oliver or? Okay, okay. And I will just read this proclamation and then everybody will know what it's about. The Newburgh School District 29J Board of Directors proclamation. In recognition of outstanding volunteer service of Dr. Paula Radich. Whereas the strength of the school district is dependent on the support of community and volunteers like Dr. Paula Radich. And whereas Dr. Paula Radich has worked constantly for 5 months without financial compensation for the betterment of the Newburgh School District 29J. And whereas the Newburgh School District 29J wishes to express its sincere appreciation to Dr. Paula Radich for her dedication to the outstanding performance of her duties during her tenure. And whereas this proclamation is presented to Dr. Paula Radich upon completion of her tenure, she will always be recognized as a valued leader and volunteer dedicated to the students, staff, and community of Newburgh School District 29J. Now, therefore, I, Deb Bridges, Chair of the Newburgh School District 29J Board of Directors, and on behalf of the Board of Directors and the citizens of Newburgh School District 29J, do hereby present this proclamation to Dr. Paula Radich as a testimonial to the generous and invaluable leadership services she has performed for the past 5 months, and with our sincere wishes for continued success and happiness in the future. In honor of Dr. Radich's selfless service, the Board of Directors proclaims Dr. Paula Radich to be a volunteer emeritus of the Newburgh School District 29J. We will get a nice one sent off to Dr. Radich, and I hope she's listening and watching the board meeting. And I'm fleeing the country on Saturday in case she's not happy with this recognition of our deep, sincere appreciation for everything she's contributed to the Newburgh School District during our crisis. So there you have it. And
we
thank
need a
you to
vote?
Nancy Woodward for bringing this forward. Do we have to vote on it?
Well, it's a board
Do we
action.
vote on it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's about board action. Okay. So all in favor of, we need a motion, sorry. I'm
I move to accept this proclamation for Dr. Paula Radich.
Second.
any further questions? I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Okay. So now is the time when we get to have our board and superintendent comments. Do you want to start? and lead
I
us?
can,
Okay, we'll go
absolutely.
around the room this
Uh,
time.
December 2nd, the governor's budget came out. It's a great starting place. $11.36 billion is a very encouraging number for the Newburgh School District. There's still some areas that need some attention, specifically around SPED financing. Currently, we're capped at 11%. We're going to be working with our legislators to increase that. High cross disability would be another area where we still need some work before this final budget. There's also in the governor's budget an 11% increase in the student investment account and a 5% increase, 4.9% increase in the High School Success Act. All of those are extremely positive as they're bringing more revenue. Gay Ellen is kind of working on what that's going to mean to our district. I don't have those numbers yet, but it's just, again, I wanted to make sure the community knows that's a very positive thing for where we're headed. This week, we're starting to get out and talk to parents about, we're engaging parents around a couple of things. One is that we have to renew our integrated guidance grants. And with that, we will need to get out and talk to our community about what's going well in our district and what are some of the challenges that we have. This Thursday, we'll be at Antonia Crater at 6 o'clock, I want to say, for the families of Dundee, Ewing Young, Antonia Crater, and Koa Elementary. We have 4 or 5 other in-person sessions. At the beginning of January, we'll also do a digital for folks who can't make it to those in-person sessions. So we have a lot of engagement going on right now where people can give us feedback. And then last, I just wanted to let you know that the bond, there's a couple of meetings ago, you voted on a bond. projects we were going to work on to finish out the bond, and we're still working on those projects. But I wanted to let you know, I'm going to have Larry come to the next board meeting on June 10th and speak to the roof at the high school. We did some work around the skylights to try and stop the leaking in the gym. It's not stopping. So the roof projects at the high school are going to be moving up that list. And just, I'm going to have them come back because you took action on that list and it's changing. So I want him to come back and tell you about that, but wanted to kind of let you know that that was out in front of us. And this will be our last board meeting before our winter break. So I want to wish everyone a happy holiday season.
I've got an extra can of Flex Seal at home. I was gonna make a boat out of a screen door, but I'd be happy to donate that if it would help. Not a whole lot. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank all the teachers and employees for making the first trimester a success. The kids graduate and they go on to do whatever they're going to do to be successful in life. And 35 years ago, I graduated from Air Force Basic Training and at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio. And just last week, I got to see my son graduate. So that was quite an honor. Very proud of him. Yeah, it's neat to see, the skills, the foundations that they get in our schools and what they do with that moving forward. So that's it.
I'm excited to see our second trimesters begin. Very thankful for the work done on the cell phone policy with our student reps and principal. And yeah, happy holidays to everybody.
And I was telling our student rep on one of our breaks, but I did get a chance to see The Lightning Thief. You guys did amazing. I took my daughter turns 5 next month. She went. That was her first play. We've never even taken her to a movie. So, I can't get her to sit still through Moana at home, but she sat through yours. The cookies at intermission helped, but and she asked 1,000 questions, but she was captivated. So, obviously I was entertained, but my daughter was too. So really good job. And that was just really fun thing that I was able to do, a little daddy-daughter, day trip. And it was super fun. But you guys did a phenomenal job. That was great. And just want to say that and echo everybody else with the going on the trimester and the holidays.
So in November, I had an opportunity to speak to City Club here in Newburgh. They asked for a up-to-date on the schools, and Dave was there, and thanks to Holly for helping put some pizzazz into our little presentation. And we had the chamber orchestra came and played prior, as people were kind of filling in, and people absolutely loved hearing the musicians there. So thanks to Joel Tanner and his group for coming for that. I attended Maker's Market. Was that last week that we went? Oh, they do such a great job and so many really cool things. And I've already gone through all of my Christmas cards that I bought from the sale program. And so it was really nice to see the kids out there and the things that they've been working on and making. I would like to say a big thank you to all the folks who have been on the Amazon wish list fulfillment team out there in the world, because I know that, there are a lot of those wish lists that have really been helping augment teachers and the librarian and the schools, really provide a rich learning opportunity. And I don't know if we'll be able to, but maybe there's a way that we can find out what has been donated to the schools through Amazon wish lists, because it's extensive. And, as I said, I posted it on my Facebook, and then my brother said, is this legit? Because he was wondering if it was sort of like a scam. I'm like, sure. But, so I had reached out to the librarian. I said, happy unpackaging of all of your Amazon wish list things. So I'm thankful to everybody who's stepped up, and will continue to help fill in the gaps. And a big thank you to all the teachers, staff, all the folks that take to make the school experience happen. I hope everybody has a really lovely break and be ready to come back and get at it in January. Thanks.
As Director Bridges said, went to the CTE Maker Market, and the students make some good things. Enjoyed the cookies, especially I bought. And congratulations to all the sports teams. I know that the girls and boys water polo were in the state tournament, and the football team did really well. And so, and other fall sports did participated in, soccer, and I think that that's such an important part of a student's experience in high school, to be active in whatever activity that they really enjoy and want to contribute to, whether it's music or arts or the sports. And as everybody said, thanks to all the teachers and staff who are working hard. We know that it's a tight year budget-wise and larger classes, but you make such a difference every day. And so thank you. And I hope everybody has a wonderful break once it arrives.
I too would like to call out the lightning thief. I think it was at our last meeting that we all said we were going to go that weekend, and my family and I went. We absolutely loved it. There was also one of the choirs from the high school is kind of touring around the elementary schools. My elementary students got to have an assembly with them today, and they were overjoyed with their experience. So thank you. I know that is a lot of work for the students and for the choir teachers. Edwards Elementary, I got to attend the 4th and 5th grade music program. They sang and performed songs in 4 different languages. It was an incredible performance. There was students that were involved in every aspect of it. And they are down to 1 music teacher this year. So she is doing an incredible job. And then Dave and I got to attend the DARE graduation at Edwards Elementary last week. And I just wanted to thank the Newburgh-Dundee Police Department and their partnership. There was representatives, a ton of representatives from the police department and also from the city of Newburgh. It's a wonderful program. My student had a wonderful time in it. So thank you for all of your work with that. And I wish everyone a very restful winter break. It's well deserved.
There we go. Yeah, I didn't have a chance to do a lot of events except watch some football. Just to add on to that, this is the furthest I've ever gone in any playoff scenario in the history of Newburgh football and playoffs. So that was cool. My nephew's on the team, so that's why I follow that quite a bit. This is kind of school related, just because we're using some of the facilities at the plant, the facilities plant over there. I'm very involved in like the Toy and Joy drive for Newburgh, and they always let us borrow a few bays to do the Toy and Joy program. And so I'm just sharing the thanks and gratitude for that opportunity to kind of house that and that whole project. I had something else. I should have wrote it down. Oh, the only other thing I'm actually looking forward to, and maybe it's because my daughter's graduating. I know it's 6 months out, but the school year's gone great so far. I'm glad to hear everything's moving forward. We're actually talking about stuff that's meaningful. It seems like we've gotten past the financial hurt, at least the old looming financial crisis, and we're like seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm excited. So looking for that already, even though it's 6 months out. So I think we're good. Yeah. Good winter break, everybody.
Not much has changed since I gave my last update a few hours ago. So I will say I was reminded that we do have a holiday concert this Thursday. We're still doing things. I mean, Vocal Point did the elementary tour today, or the part 2 of it, which I had to miss because of my final, George Fox. But it's okay. It's okay. And it's normally so much fun. I was there last week for a few of the other schools, but it's a lot of fun to sing for the kids in all the elementary schools. I get to see a lot of teachers that like still work at Maple Rush, and I'm always so excited to see the people who are still there that I knew. But yeah, good winter break wishes for everybody.
Okay, so we will be convening in January on the 14th as our next meeting. And we do have a work session on the 28th. So just be mindful of that. We have 2 meetings and the meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone.